Have a look at this image. Imagine how hard it would be to select the sky behind it, right? So how do we do that? First of all, let's click on the lock to unlock the layer. Then double click on the right hand side of the layer, right about there. This will open the layer style dialog box. Inside of that, we have to wonder, what do we want to remove? First of all, we want to remove the blues. Now, where do we want to remove it from? We want to remove it from the bright areas. So in the blend if section, instead of the grays, click on the drop down, choose blue because that's what we want to remove. Which area do we want to remove it from? From the bright areas or the dark areas? The bright areas, right? We want to remove the brighter blues. The right hand side represent the bright areas. The left hand side represent the dark areas. So as soon as you begin to take the slider to the left, have a look at it. You've got a transparent background. So cool, isn't it? Have a look at it. This is a little harsh, right? The more you take the slider to the left, the kind of harsher it gets. So how do you make the transition between the areas that show up and the areas that are transparent smoother? How do you make this transition? All right, so this area shows up, this area doesn't show up. There's a very harsh transition. So how do you make the transition smoother? You hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart and take it apart. This makes the transition smoother. You can take it apart like this, take it a little more to the right and have a look at it. This is so darn amazing, isn't it? And that, my friend, is the magic of BlendIf. If none of this is making sense, don't worry, we're gonna get through it together. So what is BlendIf in the first place? The easiest way to understand BlendIf is this. BlendIf controls which areas show up and which areas hide based on brightness levels. That's all there is to it. Here's a super easy example to illustrate that. So here in layer 1, we have a simple gradient from black to white. On layer 2, we have bright orange to a slightly darker orange. Simple gradients, all right? Now let's open up the BlendIf for layer 2. And how do we do that? We double click on the right hand side of the layer. This opens up the layer style dialog box. Inside of that, at the bottom, you'll find the BlendIf section. Now let's say you want to remove the bright areas of layer 1 from layer 2. Does that make sense? No? Let us make it clear. So this is layer 1, right? Let's say you want to remove these bright areas of layer 1 from layer 2. Keep in mind, we have opened the BlendIf for layer 2. So whatever we do will happen to layer 2 anyway. But we want to remove the bright areas of layer 1 from layer 2. Now what is layer 1 in relation to layer 2? This is layer 1. This is layer 2. Now, what is layer 1's relation to layer 2? Layer 1 is a layer under layer 2, right? So in other words, we can say that layer 1 is an underlying layer, right? So we want to remove the bright areas of layer 1 from layer 2. So we have to work with the underlying layer sliders. Now, what do we want to remove? We want to remove the bright areas. The right hand side is for the bright areas. The left-hand side is for the dark areas, very clearly shown right here. So we have to take the slider from the right, let's make it smaller, to the left. Have a look. Have a look what's happening. We are removing the bright areas of layer 1 from layer 2. That's all. Now, if you work with the left slider, the opposite would happen. Now, all that is happening is that the areas are being removed based on the brightness levels of the underlying layer, based on the brightness levels of layer 1. Why? Because it is an underlying layer and we are working with the underlying layer sliders. So here's a recap. Left slider of the underlying layer removes the dark areas of the underlying layer from the current layer. Right slider of the underlying layer removes the bright areas of the underlying layer from the current layer. Everything will happen to the current layer. Now here comes the current layer. What if you want to remove the bright areas of the current existing layer from the current existing layer? Then you work with the current layer. Now we know that at the top we have a brighter orange. At the bottom we have a darker orange. So let's say I want to remove the bright parts of just this current layer. So if you work with this slider, see, the top goes away. If you want to remove the dark areas, do the opposite. And there you go. Also, as you can see, the transition is harsh once we do this. Have a look. If we take the slider of the underlying layer from right to left, we are removing the bright areas of the underlying layer from the current layer. That is clear to you, right? But this transition is very harsh. So how do we make the transition smoother? We hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart, and The more far apart you take it, the smoother the transition will be. So if you take it absolutely far apart, the transition is very, very smooth. So that, my friend, is Blendif in a nutshell. Now, there are so many more incredible things you can do with it. I think we already have 20 such videos on applications of Blendif. Now, before we get into some exciting projects with Blendif, thanks to the awesome Envato Elements for sponsoring this video. Whether you're just getting started with Photoshop, or you have used Photoshop for a long time, or you are a seasoned user, Envato Elements is the best companion. I personally use it and have used it way before sponsorships. Whether you need those amazing Photoshop actions to create incredible effects, or you need Photoshop brushes, stock photos, stock videos, even video templates for animations like this, graphic templates, you have everything you need, and the best part is it's unlimited. For a single subscription fee, you can download as much as you want, as many as you want. I highly recommend checking it out. They also currently have a special discount for students. Check the link in the description to keep up with the latest pricing and discounts. Now, one of my favorite things with Blendif is adding shine and dimension. And you can easily use this technique to add shine to hair. It's just like going to the hair salon and getting a few highlights. Even better, you don't have any side effects right here. So first of all, let us create a solid color adjustment layer. Click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose solid color. For now, just hit OK. No, we are not going to keep the highlights black. Let's turn it off. Let's double click on the symbol of the adjustment layer. We only did it so that we can turn it off and open it again to sample the actual color of the highlight. So we'll sample a color like this. That's fine. If it's not sampling, you want to make sure that sample all layers is selected from right here. And you can choose a brighter shade. The best part about it is that you can change it later. The way we are doing it absolutely non-destructively. So hit OK once you're satisfied. Turn it on, select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. Now all you have to do is to take the brush. You already know where we are going with this. Take a soft round brush, make it slightly larger, and just dab in the areas where you want to add the shine. That's all. So let's dab right about right here with white. Make sure the foreground color is white. You can always press X to toggle between the foreground and the background color. Let's dab right here. Make sure flow and opacity are at 100. There you go. We have some shine. I know it looks odd. Wait for it. Let's add some shine right here, some right over here, some maybe right here like that. Maybe in this area. Do you think it's more than enough? I guess it's more than enough. All right. Now, how do we make the shine brighter? Because this is not going to make anything darker, right? It's a shine. It's going to make things brighter. It's a bright spot. So what is the blend mode which makes things brighter? We just learned it. Screen in the previous lessons. Do remember to watch it. Change the blend mode from normal to screen. There you go. This is bright. The shine is there, but it's still looking odd. You know why it's looking odd? Because it's also brightening the dark areas. So we want to take it away from the dark areas of what? From the dark areas of the layer that lies under it, or the underlying layer. See where we are going with this? Now double click on the right hand side of the highlight layer. And we want to take it away from the dark areas, right? So we have to work with the left hand side sliders. Now, dark areas of what? Dark areas of this subject layer or the underlying layer. So we will work with which slider? This slider right here. Underlying layer, the left hand side. So take the slider to the right, just like that. But again, this is harsh. So how do we make the transition smoother? We hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart and take it apart like that. Have a look at the shine. That is just incredible. So I'm going to keep it about this way. I like that. It's subtle. All around, hit OK. Now here's the best part. You can double click on the symbol of the adjustment layer. This opens up the color picker and you can change the highlight color after the fact. You can make it more saturated, less saturated, reddish, yellowish. It's up to you. So I'm going to keep it this color, maybe a little less saturated. That's up to you. You can make it brighter or darker. This is so convenient. Now, if you want to add an extra layer of highlight, that is also possible. You can have it of a different color. But for simplicity, I'm going to have it with the same color. Let's select this layer, press Ctrl or Command J to make a copy. We have some additional highlights. So double click on the right hand side of the layer again and make it finer. By the way, if you want to reset the blend-if, you can right click on it and then choose remove. Where did that go? It's hard to find sometimes. There are so many things right in here. Clear layer style. There you have it. It removes all the layer styling that you applied to it. It also means that it also removes the blend mode. So let's set it back to screen. Double click on the right hand side of the layer. And this time, make it even finer. So about this much. Hold the Alt key, the Option key. Click on it to take it apart like this. This is more precise highlights. So here's the before, here's the after. Now, it also affects the skin a little bit, so how do you take that away from it? First of all, I feel the highlight is too much, so I'm going to take the right broken slider all the way to the right, hit OK, and then we're going to make a group of both of these. So select the first one, hold the Control or Command, select the second one. Both of them are now selected, press Control or Command G. This creates a group, and click on the mask button right here. Take the brush, black as the foreground color, and simply remove the extras. That's all. Let's take a look. So here's the before, here's the after. Sometimes this can be too much. We are humans, so you can always decrease the opacity to something that works for you. We're going to go for probably 74, and that's just fantastic. Now you can use the absolute same technique to add drama to the eyes. Have a look at it. At the top, we have the catch light. So right here, we would have some reflected light, right? So how do we add that? First of all, we add a curves adjustment layer by clicking on the adjustment layer icon and then choosing curves right here. Simply take it up. Nothing complicated right here. Now select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I. This inverts the mask. Take the brush, take a soft round brush, and just dab on the opposite side like this. Now nothing's happening because the color is black. Dab with white like this. Now I love this shine. Let's increase it even more. Now remove the extras first of all. Press X to toggle between the foreground and the background and remove the extras from right here. Now this by itself is looking great, but we want to add some drama and we want to keep the brightness only to the brighter areas. So how do we do that again? Blend if. So double click on the right hand side of the layer and take the slider of the underlying layer from left to right. There you go. That's nice. Now hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart and take it apart. And do something like this. Now have a look at the difference it creates. It makes it more subtle, it keeps it more natural, and at the same time it looks dramatic. Hit OK and have a look at the before and after. So here's the before, here's the after. Now you can copy to the other eye, nothing difficult. So select the mask right here, select the move tool from right here, hold the Alt key or the Option key, and just drag it and drop it right here. Nothing complicated. Let's take a look at the before and after. So here is the before and here is the after. Night and day difference. Now you can also use the same technique to target a specific area. Have a look at the highlights. If you think that the highlights are too bright and you want to bring more skin tone to it, click on the adjustment layer icon and choose curves again. And this time we're going to take it down. So create a point in the middle and simply take it down. I don't know why it is lagging for some reason. Anyway, we want to limit this darkness to the bright areas. So how do we do that? Double click on the right hand side of the layer. The other way to phrase it is that we want to remove the curves effect from the dark areas of the underlying layer and keep it only in the bright areas. So to remove this effect from the dark areas of the underlying layer, we will move the slider of the underlying layer from left to right. Keep it only in the bright areas, but this is extremely harsh. So hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it to break it apart, and I'm gonna just take it all the way to the right hand side and control this part. That's about right. Hit OK. Let's take a look at the before and after. So here's the before and here's the after. That's pretty fantastic, isn't it? Now you can go back right here and control the curve to your liking. So I want to keep it probably this way. And also it affects the entire image. Here's the before, here's the after. If you only wanted it on the skin, you might want to select the mask, press Ctrl or Command I, take the brush, white as the foreground color, and just paint on areas where you wanted it. That's all. Now, sometimes these can be too harsh, so you also might want to decrease the opacity. In this case, we're going to keep it 76. Here's the before, here's the after. That's a nice, rich skin tone. There's so many more applications and adjustments with Blend if. You can also add drama with it, and you can check out this video in which we completely added drama in 3D effect to kind of a flat photo. You might want to watch it later because we have so many more incredible things coming up, starting with masking with Blend if. Remember the very first example where we removed the sky? Now it's going to become clearer to you because now we are moving to different channels inside of Blend if. So first of all, let's unlock the layer. Double click on the right hand side of the layer again to open up the layer style dialog box. Now up until now, we were working with the gray channel right here. We also have the option to work with red, green, and blue channels. So in this case, since blue is the dominant color and we want to remove the blues from the bright areas, it's much better to work with blues, because if we worked with the gray channel and we removed the bright areas, have a look, bright areas from the tree also go away. So to avoid that, you want to only target the blues, and then when you do it, the trees are fine. For the most part. Now, if you go extreme, it will go away from there as well. But for the most part, most of the blues from the back will just go away. And to make the Sorry about the construction work happening in the background. I'm not sure if you can hear it. And of course, to make the transition smoother, you would hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart, and take it apart like this. That's nice. Hit OK. So here's the sky I have. Let's drag it and drop it into Photoshop on top of the canvas. Let's make it larger, something like this. Hit Enter or Return. Now we're going to place it under this layer, and we have the sky replaced. Now let's move it right about there or here. That's up to you. Now it's not matching well because the original sky was brighter. So we just have to make it slightly brighter. So click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose curves. Everything is related to curves and you can do a lot of things with curves. It's very important to learn curves. There's an entire video on how it works and you can master curves using this one. Watch this after watching this video. We have already covered the basics of curves, I think, in previous lessons a little bit. Now, let's make it slightly brighter like this, and there you go. The sky is very nicely replaced. Now, can you turn whatever you created? Let's turn all of this off for a moment. Can you turn this into a selection? Because right now it's not actually a selection, but some areas are just getting transparent. The easiest way to do that, for some reason if you wanted to, is right-click on it and choose Convert to Smart Object. And now you can hold the Control command, click on it, and now that turns into a selection. So if you ever wanted that, that is the way to do it. Now moving on to our final example, BlendIf is a great way to place any object on any surface, and it's fun. So let's say in this wall right here, I want to place a logo or something exciting. So I have this scary graphic right here, which fits perfectly. Let's drag it and drop it right here. This is transparent, so let's adjust it to our liking like this. Let's keep it at the center. We want to match it up to this line right here in the middle, and maybe make it smaller, larger, that's up to you. We're going to keep it this size, maybe take it up like this, hit Enter or Return. Now we have to think about it in terms of paint and lighting. So the dark paint in here is going to darken the wall, and the brighter paint in here is going to brighten the wall. So first of all, let's talk about darkening the wall. But before we do anything, just make 2 copies because we are brightening and darkening. So here's the graphic, press Ctrl or Command J to make a duplicate. Turn off the first one. This is for darkening. So for darkening, what is the blend mode? Let's not forget, multiply. Change the blend mode from normal to multiply. But we only want the dark paints to darken the wall, and also it will be gone from the bright areas a little bit. So first of all, let's change the blend mode name to multiply so that we can keep track of things, and double click on the right hand side of the layer. Now first of all, what did we decide? We only want the darker paints to darken the wall. So let's remove the brighter paints from the current layer, right? So let's work with the sliders of the current layer to remove the brighter paints like this. Now this is going to be harsh, so hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it to break it apart, and something like this is fine. Now you can play with this later, that's fine too. Now we have to remove the paint from the bright areas of the wall, which is an underlying layer, to add that shine off the wall. So take the slider of the underlying layer from right to left like this. Again, of course, this is harsh, so hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it to break it apart, and take it apart like this. Now that looks absolutely realistic. So we can leave it at that or go all in like this. Hit OK. Now let's turn this one on. This is for brightening. So what is the blend mode which brightens stuff? Screen. So change the blend mode from normal to screen. Double click on the right hand side of the layer. For this one, we only want the bright paints to brighten stuff. So let's take away the dark paints from the current layer. So take the slider of the current layer from left to right like this. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the slider to break it apart. Take it all apart like this. That's nice. Now, we want to take this away from the dark areas to have those shadows of the texture of the wall. Take the slider of the underlying layer from left to right like this. This is looking very interesting. Now hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on it to break it apart and take it apart like this. Okay, now that is something. Damn, that looks realistic. Now again, the paint won't be so perfect and so sharp, right? So we have to blur it a little bit. So select the first one. By the way, this is screen, right? Let's name the layers. Double click on the text to name it. Let's go to Filter, Blur, and then Gaussian Blur. 2 pixels is fine, hit OK. You can actually copy the same blur right here. Hold the Alt key or the Option key, click and drag the smart filter and drop it right here as well. Both of them have blur in them. Now that's looking nicer, realistic. But do you think it's too much blur? Let's open up the Gaussian blur, double click on it and keep it probably 1.2. This one as well, 1.2. That's nice. Okay, now there's one more thing missing. The paint wouldn't be so perfect, right? Some areas would come off, some areas would be scratched. So how do we bring that? First of all, let's put both of them in a group. So select the first one, hold the Control or Command, select the second one, press Control or Command G. Now we have to introduce a grunge mask. So this is an image I have with a lot of scratches. Let's open that. Have a look at it. We can absolutely use this to hide different areas. So let's just drag it and drop it into Photoshop on a new document for now. Let's continue, that's fine. Control or Command A to select all, Control or Command C, let's come back to this. Now let's create a mask by clicking on the mask button. Let's open up the mask by holding the Alt key or the Option key, click on the mask, and then paste it inside of the mask. Remember, using an image as a mask, we covered it in the layer mask lesson. I recommend watching that lesson later if you haven't. Press Control or Command V, hold the Alt key or the Option key, click on the layer. Now, most of it is gone. Why is it gone? Because we want the opposite of it. We want, in this mask, the black areas to show up and the white areas to hide, but that doesn't happen. So how do we deal with that? We invert the mask. Select the mask, press Control or Command I. There you go. Now the scratches and everything are black. Hold the Alt key, the Option key, click on the mask again. Now you have all of these scratches. So here's the before, here's the after, but it's also not very evident. So first of all, press Control or Command D to deselect. Now we want to transform this grunge texture which is inside the mask. If you press Control or Command D and try to readjust anything, the contents will get adjusted too. We don't want that. We want to adjust the mask separately. So how do we do that? We click on the link right here, remove the link, and then with the mask selected, we press Control or Command T, and then we bring it right here. Possibly that's looking nicer. You can actually also resize it. Let this area be gone. Do something like that. That's also nice. Hit enter or return. Now the intensity of this mask is not too much. So how do we increase the intensity? So select the mask, press Control or Command M to bring up the curves adjustment and adjust it. There you go. It's becoming more and more intense. We are just making the dark areas darker. There you go. You can even adjust it further like this. See the intensity there? I like it. Hit OK. Now look at it. So without it, it's all well and nice. It's looking fake, but with it, you see all the grunge right there? That's fantastic. Now to make it even more dramatic, you can take it further by color grading. So click on the adjustment layer icon and then choose color lookup. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Choose something like probably crisp warm, and there you go. That is just straight dangerous right here. Now this is too much, so we're going to decrease the opacity to about 60%. I believe we can add more drama to it, and one of the ways you can do it is just under the color lookup. Let's create one more curves adjustment layer. Let's brighten it like this. That looks nice. Now select the mask, and with the gradient tool right here, by the way, you can choose the new gradients at the top. Choose a gradient from white to black. Choose a radial gradient, and you can create a gradient like this. That's interesting. Now you can control the curve, make it brighter or darker. Now that looks very, very nice. Now I believe that the color lookup is darkening these areas way too much. So let's create one more curves adjustment layer and just add a faded effect. Take the left point up like this and create a point right here and take it down as well. And for additional contrast, you can take this point up as well. So curves is a very fun thing to experiment with. On top of it, you can add textures. By the way, if you haven't yet checked out, do consider checking out the PiXimperfect compositing plugin. It's a plugin where all of the steps of creating a composite is listed and every function is a shortcut. For example, you want to match colors of a subject to a new background just with 2 clicks. Here's a demo. You can easily match the colors automatically. Inside of the plugin, in the structures section, you'll also find some overlays and textures. So let's apply this one. And there you go. I love this texture right here. And the best part is, first of all, let's click on this button to apply it. This is seamless. So you can double click on the thumbnail of the adjustment layer. You can move it around and you can scale it if you like. You can make it smaller or larger. That's up to you. I'm going to keep it smaller, 45%. Sorry about the construction work in the background. And there you have your dangerous tunnel where you don't want to be. So that's all about BlendIf. It simply controls which areas show up and which areas hide based on brightness levels. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, make sure to give us a like, and also don't forget to subscribe, and not just subscribe. Ring the bell so that you, my friend, don't miss any other future tips, tricks, or tutorials. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.
We're up here on cloud nine. mind. And somehow we get it right every time.